While we're continuing our journey building our tiny house, this was a picture I found to look up some ideas on framing. And I found some more pictures to show you what we did before we put the base framing on. So you have an idea of how we extended the wheel well to accommodate the third axle. This is me. I'm putting in the insulation. So the framing on the floor for the new tiny house is 2x6s. And so this is the rock wool insulation that I had purchased to put in there. It's at this point in our tiny house build that Sean and I had to separate for 8 months. This was the start of the 8 months. So you'll see most of the footage of me and my dad building the tiny house from here on forward. Thankfully, Sean was able to get a higher paying job, a better job, something a little bit better in Northern Ontario. And conveniently 5 minutes from the property that we bought, like literally 5-minute drive from the property we bought. So we are very blessed. And so we separated for 8 months, and I built the tiny house mostly on my own with my dad. And I'm very grateful to my dad, because without him, I wouldn't know, even basics like framing. I don't know how to do framing. I have very limited experience. I could always look to him to ask questions on what was right and what was not right, along with looking up on YouTube and Google researches. I found the rock wool fairly easy to work with and pretty rigid, so it was decent until I got to doing the interior with the rock wool, and that ended up being super dusty. And this is just a quick clip of me putting in the flooring. So I ended up needing 5 sheets of 4x8 tongue and groove plywood, and I cut them all to fit around the wheel well and put them all in place. So this is just some footage of me doing that. Obviously a lot colder day than the day when I was putting the insulation in. So the size of this trailer is 20 feet, but 1 foot is actually the bumper. So the floor space that we're going to be building on is actually 19 feet by 8 feet wide. When we built this tiny house, we did attempt to build it to code, but we are not contractors and we are not experts, and we may have missed some things. So when watching our videos, just keep in mind that, you need to do your research for yourselves, and make sure that you do what's good for you and how you want to build your tiny house. Also wanted to take the opportunity here to point out that because we knew that we were moving to Northern Ontario, we decided to make a dry tiny house. So we knew that we weren't going to put in any plumbing other than, what we're going to use for a toilet is a composting toilet. And that would, no running water or anything like that. Perhaps we would install it in the future, but at least initially, for the initial move up there, we were going to make this tiny house dry. And it's so far at this point still dry. We still haven't installed the kitchen sink, so we have that to get to. Also, we know nothing or not really anything about electrical. My dad did the wiring for the lights for the trailer, So we also didn't do any of the electrical until later on when we went to put the walls in. Then we kind of ran some wires. But even still at this date and time, we haven't figured out how to run electrical in it. Our idea is to set it up like an RV and kind of have like where you could plug into shore power and run an extension cord and plug the tiny house in. But we haven't figured that all out yet, and that is something that we're still working on. If you want, like, subscribe, follow, catch our next video. We're going to be putting walls up next video, so that's exciting. And I'll see you then.